Hello, everyone, and welcome to this discussion on Mid-South Wrestling. And now your host, Rodney West. He's going to tell you all about the behind-the-scenes of Mid-South Wrestling. Here we go.
Hello again, everybody. It's again time for another edition of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. Rodney West, along with Jack Lord, and, of course, the founder of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out, Mr. Brent West.
Oh!
Yeah, all right. All right, then. He wasn't doing that yet.
And I've just got Dr. Pepper. I don't know what he's drinking.
Well, what tonight we're going to be discussing. By the way, thank you for joining us on this very special live edition of the Mid-South Wrestling. And as always, we thank you for joining us. Tonight we're going to focus on episode 254. It was originally aired July the 7th of 1984. Again, a tremendous year, banner year, one of the biggest years ever for Mid-South Wrestling. We begin the program with Joel Watts and Jim Ross. And, of course, Joel, from now on, really, if you watch that, Joel might need to get his own format. That way he can't cheat on everybody else's format.
Did you notice, Jack, you watch it, did you notice he did not have anything in front of him?
No, and he was looking over trying to see, and Jim finally just took off. It's almost like Jim was trying to keep him from looking at it.
I don't know that notes would have helped him.
Probably, maybe not. But anyway, they throw to the ring, and Bill Watts is there with Magnum TA, and this is the presentation of the big, beautiful 27-pound silver and gold new North American Heavyweight Championship belt. I don't think there's ever been a more beautiful belt, and it really was. It was humongous. I mean, it was humongous. That tells you the trend, the Mid-South Wrestling, because you have to be a big guy to wear that, no doubt. And, of course, it was a beautiful belt, and, of course, he talked about all the other ones. You would think they would have had the old one, and then they would replace it with the new one. But anyway, it was a beautiful belt, and I thought Magnum TA did a tremendous interview right there because – and I especially liked the salute to Mr. Wrestling 2. I thought that was classy. Out of all the people, and of course, Wrestling 2 had already left Mid-South, but I thought it was a great tribute to Wrestling 2 by saying, you know, even my old coach, Wrestling 2, would want a chance at this championship title, and he would, and this belt. And I thought it was classy. I thought it was real classy by Magnum TA. And then out comes our favorite. Yeah, there it is, the beautiful belt, just huge, 27 pounds. And actually, this is the belt right here that made Ric Flair jealous, and he demanded a new design and a new belt right here, this one right here.
What did you think about the title, Jack?
Oh, I loved it. When the first time I saw it, I thought, man, it's beautiful, it's different, but it meant something. You know, I just loved it. Still do. Still one of my favorite belts.
It's
I wonder if Bill Watts paid extra trance for the person that had to deliver that thing around everywhere. A good 27 pounds.
It had its own case. They had it in its own case, that big, huge belt. Anyway, out comes, right at the end of this, out comes Ernie Ladd. And Ladd was out there complaining. You talked about Ted DiBiase and Butch Reed, but you didn't mention Ernie Ladd. Why don't you dress for a match? And Ladd said, get in the ring right now. Took that belt on the line. He was fantastic. I love Ernie Ladd. Just he always the class act, always great. And he can stir it up. And I love the jacket on the back. He said, promises, promises. I just love that. Ernie Ladd, always a favorite. Come up with the first match. It's Hercules Hernandez against Josh Stroud. And then this Cornette announces that he's been going through his videos, and now he's got a brand new hold for Hercules Hernandez during this match. And as the match progressed, Hercules puts this hold on it all. Now, Jim Ross and Joel Watts had no idea what this hold was. Absolutely no idea what this hold was. I thought it was a time, and they've never seen it before. They've never seen any other organization that would have this match or this kind of hold. I thought it was amazing. You kind of wonder, if they'd ever seen any wrestling, even from Georgia. I don't know. But this, so anyway, he wins with this brand new hold, and it looked, I don't know, Jack, it kind of reminded me of the Cobra hold.
Kind of looked exactly like it.
Kind of the Cobra hold. But anyway, so we come back out of the match, and Cornette saying that I taught this man a brand new hold. And he says, It's called, yeah, there it is. And it called, look at that. Look at Boyd Pierce. Look at Boyd Pierce's that suit. I tell you right now, I love his suits.
I got a shirt like that.
Cornette comes out and says, now I'm going to tell you what the name of this hold is. It's called the Shinnomaki. The Shinnomaki. And it baffled Jim Ross and Joel Watts. You kind of wonder what they've been doing for it.
Evidently, they hadn't been watching wrestling.
No.
They didn't watch the Superstar. And I think, actually, am I wrong? But did the Superstar not wrestle in Mid-South Wrestling?
He sure did.
Mm-hmm.
He sure did. And
did he not use the Cobra hold there?
I'm
pretty sure he called it the Shinnomaki there too, because that's what it's called in Japan, which is where he kind of come back with it.
Well, I mean, and then we had the Cobra Clutch with Sergeant Slaughter. I mean, they're trying to play with this right there. Just tell you right now, I'm unimpressed.
I'm pretty sure the Sarge hooked fingers.
Did he?
Different.
Yeah, just a little bit. The Cobra.
A little bit different.
Well, wait, can I say something about that before we move on? Josh Stroud was wrestling in this match, and I'm very impressed with Josh Stroud. But Josh did not want to let his arm go.
No.
So Dad could do. For everybody out there that's just watching you, our father is the referee in this match. So he tries to, and he won't let go. I don't know if Herc was hurting him or he just didn't want to do the deal.
You know what? I bet you he was hurting him. I just, because he was keeping that arm. He said, you can see Dad said, let go of your arm. Let go.
He could, so finally he just asked for the bell. Did you see that, Jack?
I did.
No. Josh Stroud played. Didn't he play football for Birmingham?
I believe he did.
Wow. Well, they did talk about him having in another show. They did talk about him winning bodybuilding contest in Kansas City. So now we come up. We have a special, the PYT, and this is a video that they had done in Memphis, and so they re-showed that. Then we had a match of the Midnight Express versus the PYT, and when Cornette grabs a hold of the microphone from Boyd Pierce gives him a look every time like, I'm just going to punch you. I wish he would just one time. I wish they'd have done it one time. That place would have exploded. But anyway, so we got the Midnight Express versus the PYT. Now, not only does Magnum TA have a new North American Heavyweight Championship belt, but we have brand new Mid-South Tag Team Championship belts too that look a lot kind of like in the design of the World Heavyweight Championship, except it just got Mid-South on it. I never agreed with that, using the same type of plates for if you have a world champion, it should be an exclusive belt. It should not be any kind of knockoffs, if you will. But anyway, so we have the Midnight Express in the ring. Cornette does his introduction, and then here comes the PYT, and already the people are chanting PYT, PYT. It's just absolutely tremendous. And at the first part of the match, of course, Coco Ware and Norvell Austin control the match. I mean, they are in total control of the match until the sneak tag with Dennis Condrey, and where he knees Norvell Austin in the back. Tag team. They tag Coco Ware, and then Coco goes for the rolling reverse on Bobby Eaton. As he does, goes into the ropes with Bobby Eaton. Bobby sticks his head between the top rope in the middle. Cornette comes up, hits him with the tennis racket. It's 1, 2, 3. It's Midnight Express over the PYT. Tremendous match, you have to admit. I mean, just
it really was good.
I mean, the Coco Ware, Norvell, just fast, and I mean everybody knew everybody, and that's what makes it click in a great match like this. Then we have another video with Terry Taylor. This with Rod Stewart. Do you think I'm sexy? And then anyway, that was with Terry Taylor and his special on him. And then we have a match between he and Pat Rose, and of course Terry Taylor wins that one with the flying forearm. Again, Pat Rose, never a bad match with Pat. I think in lots of cases this is one of those situations where you missed the boat, totally missed the boat on a guy, and he would have been a tremendous asset, and he did prove so later on in the year as he moved to Southeastern Championship Wrestling.
I want to stop right there for just a second, because I know Jack can add to Pat Rose as well. There was no reason why they couldn't watch the matches and see that Pat Rose could wrestle a whole lot better than Steve Williams. And I'm not taking anything away from Steve Williams. Could you have imagined the matches instead of Steve Williams and Terry Taylor? Could you imagine the matches Pat Rose and Terry Taylor could have? Am I way off base here, Jack?
Absolutely correct, man. I mean, Pat could walk and talk, and he could do everything that a top guy needed to do. And, you know, why he wasn't put in a top spot is probably one of the greatest travesties of wrestling to me. I mean, you know, Pat, I don't know that Pat will ever get the true recognition that he really deserves. But, man, he was one of the best I was ever in the ring with, and he was one of the best I ever watched in the ring. And
tremendous.
That's it. Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous. You're exactly right. Then we come with a big match. It's Butch Reed and Buddy Landale against the Junkyard Dog and Jim Duggan.
Woo!
Yeah, here we go. This is a big one, and this leads to other things that's coming up down the road. In this particular video, this match was edited to edit out the part in that was important to it. And of course, the match starts with Reed Landale, and then Landale is trying to get it. For whatever reason, it seemed like, I don't know if you all caught it. It seemed like either Reed was hurt or something was going on there. Did you catch that? Did you pick up on that?
Something's going on. Boyd Pierce got out of the ring quicker than Hacksaw moved the whole match.
I don't know if he banged his knees. I don't know what happened, but and every time Landale would try to get him to come in the ring, he was like, go ahead. I don't know what was going on. What do you think, Brent?
You know, I watched that match, and I think Buddy Landale, am I wrong about this, but was Buddy Landale the only person in that ring that actually was performing? Was the rest of them sleeping? Were they? Now that wasn't when. That is not the night or the day that everybody had to go get shots for the the hepatitis shots.
Hepatitis A, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it almost came down to even families had to go take it, but they decided that wasn't a good idea. And it might have been, but I don't know. Was Duggan sick? I think it came later because when Duggan was sick like that, he threw up all over the back of Dead's head.
This is true. I've got to talk a little bit about Butch Reed. It seemed to me in the match. Now I don't know. Maybe you guys can we talk about new modern wrestling, but we have to say this match really was horrible. This match had to go down as one of the worst matches I have seen from four people who are great wrestlers. This is what it seemed to me like, though, in this match. It seemed like Butch Reed was getting upset of the things that Duggan and Junkyard Dog were doing, because everything they were doing was looking horrible. Duggan's punches was looking horrible. Duggan, I don't know where that little thing that he does, man, that thing looked horrible. That thing looked horrible. Him hitting the ropes just looked horrible. He had wrestled since 1978, and he looked like a guy that had not wrestled within a week. And Junkyard Dog wasn't any better. And I'm not trying to. They drew a lot of money. They got over there more than any. Junkyard Dog got over better there than any wrestler ever got over there. I think him and Wrestling 2 had to be in that field. But that match should have never aired on television. Do y'all agree?
I agree.
What about you, Jack? What did you see with it? You've been in the wrestling ring. You've wrestled. What did you see in that match?
You know, I've been in a lot of tag matches where one or two of the guys are just having an off night. But like I say, Buddy was the only one that wasn't off. And he was working his behind off to try to make it look as good as he could.
He was.
I don't know if they were tired. I don't know what the road schedule was, at that time. I don't know what was going on. But it was just like the other three were just kind of phoning it in.
All right,
Buddy was out there trying to work.
This was what was supposed to happen. Duggan hits the ropes, and for whatever reason, this stopping people in the ropes with a knee. Because Duggan was going to come out, and Buddy was supposed to be on the other side of that, and Buddy was supposed to give the knee and stop Duggan. During that when Duggan was supposed to sell a little bit. The problem was Buddy was on the other side of the ring. He couldn't do it because he wasn't on that side. So he misses it. Duggan jumps over top of him, stops, looks at Butch like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? He didn't get me. He didn't beat me up. So then he walks over to Butch and basically leans down and says, lay back down, and goes and does the knee. Did y'all notice that?
Yeah.
This is Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You've wrestled since 1978. Couldn't you figure out how to do better than that? And then what makes it even worse is Bill Watts should have let that hit television. That was just
he could have done some creative editing.
So for those people who say we only knock modern wrestling, now you can see that was bad, and it doesn't matter what area it is.
No, when it's bad, it's bad. And guess what? When we saw it, we called it.
Bad thing.
Everybody know. You want to know? Come and ask us. We'll let you know. No problem with that. We tell you exactly if it was sorry. And we told them more than once it was sorry. Anyway, now we've got Cornette and Hercules Hernandez. They make their appearance at the ring, at ringside in the match, coming to the end. Duggan hits the ropes, and when he does, Cornette pulls the top rope down, and then it's Hercules, and Cornette's just kicking Duggan, and Hercules Hernandez. They're beating up on Duggan, and then here comes Sonny King with one of the most beautiful flying headbutts I've seen. I mean, that thing, he hit. And then Sonny went down, and he sold for a long time. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Sonny was he's saving the day. He surely was. And then Duggan goes after Cornette. Cornette is running. He's a track star going all the way around, goes all the way back to the dressing room. And here comes Dennis and Bobby. They're waiting on Jim Duggan in the back. Everybody's eyes are on Duggan and the Midnight in the back of the building. And I mean, and Duggan has got them both going and rams their heads together, then grabs a 2x4 and heads back to the ring. What's going on? It's Reed and Landell beating down the Junkyard Dog. Duggan comes in the ring. Anyway, all heck breaks loose. Duggan loses the 2x4. And then Hercules Hernandez comes back in. He's about to hit Duggan with the 2x4, and in comes Sonny King to protect Duggan, and then it's the 2x4 on the shoulder of Sonny King. Sonny King done a great job in that. I have to admit. I mean, he was just fantastic.
Missed opportunity after that, though. Missed opportunity. Sonny King turning on Hacksaw Jim Duggan because he was the one that brought the 2-5-4 in the ring. Exactly. That would have been a great thing they could have done. But
all of what you're seeing, we saw the tennis racket with the show in the match before. We saw the 2x4 in this one. We've seen chairs in the last few weeks, and that will lead us to what's going to happen on the next program, and we'll go over it. And I've always loved this part of Mid-South Wrestling. Then we have a big video. They come back, and of course we're going to have other matches. But Bill Watts comes back, and they have an interview, and Watts is in the ring with Duggan and with Junkyard Dog and Sonny King, and they're going to get him out of the ring. And of course, Sonny's just doing a tremendous job with the situation as they're trying to roll him out. And Duggan does an interview, which I thought was incredible. But anyway, I didn't go for that. But
Jim Duggan became I don't know if Jack, did you notice he became a doctor in that thing? He says these words. I think it's a dislocated shoulder. I don't know. Duggan knew that it was a dislocated shoulder. Dr. Jim Duggan.
His medical expertise was better than his punches that night.
No doubt. You're exactly right about that. Exactly right for that. Then we have another video of the Fantastics. I think they've played that one a few times. And then we end the show with an interview with Terry Taylor, in which he talks about having to defend the Mid-South TV title against Crusher Khrushchev, and about Dr. Death, who still has the Mid-South television medal. So now we come up to the next show. It's 255. It was played on July the 26th, of 1984. And we open up the program with Boyd and Joel Watts again. And this time they have Watts has Buddy Landell and Butch Reed. I love Butch Reed in this. I thought he was great. But anyway, they start to recap what happened to Sonny King the week before. And they come back, and Bill Watts makes an announcement that anyone bringing a chair, chain, of course, he had them all there, 2x4 chairs, chains, and a tennis racket that they were going to be and bring it into the ring and use it. It was going to be a $10,000 fine. And for Cornette, whose mother would pay any fine, he would be suspended if he used such things. And then Reed, he just trashes everybody. I'm not going to say what he said about Junkyard Dog, but he called Jim Duggan the hairy hippie, and then he picked up the tennis racket and he said, and I don't care anything about this sissy carrying this tennis racket around. I don't know if y'all caught that. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
And then Landell's like, yeah, I don't understand why you're complaining about us. It was Duggan bringing in the 2x4s, Dog bringing in the chain. It's Sonny King with the chair. It's never us. And I thought Reed was just brilliant in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But I love the deal. Finally, making sense. Less in the chairs because it got monotonous.
Yeah. A little inside stuff there. A little inside stuff now, because we call this pro wrestling inside and out. So I'm going to tell you what happened. We kept on telling Dad and Bill Dundee, I said, man, how many times is somebody going to get hit with a chair? How many times are you going to do that in a match? At some point, you got to stop it. And I think Bill Dundee made the decision, says, you know what? Unless it's a rule, I'll never stop it. So I tell you what, we're just going to get on TV and make it a rule. And that's exactly what they did, because they were doing that every night somewhere. The whole time we were there, every night somebody get hit by the chair, and it was just getting monotonous.
But you know what though? I like the idea, because then if it does happen, now the people are really hot. People are really hot when it happens, and I thought that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Daniel Harbin, hello, Daniel Harbin, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out right here on YouTube. Also, by the way, we want to say hello to Tyrone Spivey as well.
And Mr. Tyrone. All right, then. So now we got another interview, and we got Steve Dr. Death Williams and Jim Ross, and they're talking about the medal. And he says, Steve Williams tells, and of course Jim Ross tells him, hey, you're not the Mid-South Television Champion. You shouldn't have the medal. Of course, Jim Ross was okay while he stole it from Crusher Khrushchev, but now it's Terry Taylor. He's not so happy about it. I wonder why. There you go. Steve Williams. And, of course, anyway, Crusher Khrushchev is going to have a match, Mid-South TV Championship return match, basically, from the Superdome against Terry Taylor. And Steve Williams finally says, hey, if Terry Taylor beats Crusher Khrushchev today on TV, I'll give him the tie. I'll give him the medal back. And so, well, then, there you heard it. It was then they go off, and then, of course, and then it's the match for the Mid-South TV Championship. Crusher Khrushchev versus Terry Taylor. And apparently, in that match, someone announced the match was 1 fall, 10 minutes. Because after that, it was Boyd and Joel over and over again. Now, this is 1 fall, 15 minutes for special 15 minutes for this particular match. And apparently, maybe Jim Ross announced it 1 fall, 10. I don't remember if he did or not. Nobody's paying attention to that anyway. But anyway, so it's special. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a special 1 fall, 15-minute time limit for the Mid-South Television Championship. Well, the match continues, and then it's going back and forth. Crusher Khrushchev, and it's a great match. Terry Taylor, always great. Crusher Khrushchev, always great. A great match for TV. And then as the match continues, Terry Taylor ends out on the floor. Of course, Dr. Death Williams out there watching the match, picks up Taylor, and then I don't know what happens. But I'm supposing he's supposed to run him in the post.
All right, Jack. You've been running to a post before in your time. Explain this one to the folks.
You actually got to hit it. There's an art to it, but it ain't that hard.
What in the world? What in the world was they thinking in that thing?
And you know what? In my opinion, now this just is my opinion, if it was anybody else except for Steve Williams, they would have been fired.
I think so.
I believe Bill Watts would have met them at the door and said, I don't think you need to be in this business anymore, and out the door. Because Watts, now I have tremendous respect for Bill Watts. He does not play. He does not play, but he has his favorites. He had his favorites. We have to admit that he had his favorite, and one of them was Steve Williams, because I'll just be honest with you. We did not like Steve Williams. That was a good time when we were going to house shows. It was a good time to head to the concession stand, because we know that wasn't going to be good.
I think we need to explain why. All right. It was not because he was a horrible person. He was a great person. Wonderful human being. But he lacked in the wrestling skills that it took. That's the reason I said Pat Rose would have been a whole lot better in that spot. Steve Williams should have been in the spot Pat Rose was in. That way, Pat Rose and Terry Taylor would have tore the house down instead of tearing the wrestling business down by Steve Williams trying to wrestle against Terry Taylor.
It was like Terry Taylor had to be a dentist and had to pull teeth the whole match.
It was bad. Those matches were bad.
But like we said, hey, we're equal opportunity offenders here. We're not going knock one and not the other. And it was.
If it's bad, it's bad. It don't matter if it's modern wrestling or it was old school wrestling, as everybody calls it, old school wrestling. So, but these two shows, pretty bad. Pretty a couple of bad shows. Now they do come back from this, so everybody stay tuned, because Mid-South Wrestling does come back from these.
Yeah, they don't continue to make the same mistake over and over again. Can we say the same for the current product? I don't know. Anyway, so the match continues. The match continues. Terry Taylor comes back in the ring, and he's making a great effort, and Khrushchev is just keeping the pressure. Finally, Khrushchev whips him into the other opposite corner, goes in for a shoulders, and Taylor comes up sunset flip. 1, 2, 3. Terry Taylor wins the match. And so now it's time for Steve Williams to hand over the medal, and he does, upside the head, and then he walks out. He walks out with the Mid-South.
And that was pretty good. I'll have to admit, I enjoyed that part of that.
Absolutely. And then they come back, and now it's Boyd and Joel trying to explain. Now, we just had a rule that if anybody brought this, and this into the ring, they'd be fined of $10,000. But you know what? They didn't include medals in the rules, so we're not going to fine him $10,000 for hitting him with the medal. But you would have thought, hey, look, we're going to get you. You need to hand the medal.
Well, now, as you know, they should have really went and fined him. And he said, "Now wait a minute." And he should have went back in time and said, "Listen, you said so and so and so. You didn't say nothing about hitting somebody with a medal." Yeah. They should have really built it up the heat a little bit.
It was Mid-South equipment that I hit with. Coming up with the next match is the Midnight Express against Mike Jackson and Josh Stroud. And Hercules Hernandez was out there with Cornette. In that match, they finally let the cat out of the bag after a month. Rock and Roll Express loses a loser leave town or loser leave Mid-South match in Hammond, Louisiana. And that happened on July the 7th. That's nearly a month ago that this happened. And, of course, they're going to be gone, he says, and Joel says, for 90 days. And we are, anybody that – we can see that they're gone. Anybody could see that they were gone. But I think it was a terrible mistake for not recording that match, not having it to be shown, not having any interviews, just sort of that. They just disappear. Maybe, maybe the next time we get Bill Dunny on, we can ask. Maybe if they talked about the Rock and Roll Express when they're trying to push the PYT and Fantastic, maybe it would distract from them. I don't know, but it would just seem to be, being that they were coming back, it would just seem more appropriate to let people know that what happened to them. And it was a tremendous match. Yeah, and Cornette and the Midnight just pulled out all the stops. Cornette had a rope. They tied around Ricky Morton's leg, and Cornette was out pulling the rope. It was one of those, railroad jobs. Right there in Hammond, Louisiana. And the thing about it, Jack Curtis, who was doing the event coordinating, was the promoter there. He said, I didn't even know this match was happening. I didn't know this was going on. And it was a cage match, loser leave Mid-South. And, of course, like I said, in that match, it was that's when they finally divulged what happened to the Rock and Roll Express. Anyway, Bobby and Dennis on top of their game. I don't know if there's a better team. I mean, it was like poetry in motion, even though the difficulties with Mr. Stroud. I mean, it was poetry in motion. And they end up doing that whole thing where Dennis goes down on his knees and then Bobby Eaton comes across with the clothesline, and it's 1, 2, 3 Midnight Express over in that match. Again, tremendous match.
And stay tuned. The folks that are watching this right now, stay tuned, because we're going to talk about Brad Armstrong in just a moment. We're going to answer the guy's question, and we're also going to talk about why we feel like the Midnight Express got over in Mid-South Wrestling. We're also going to talk about the Junkyard Dog. We're going to talk about the Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and we're going to talk a little bit about a little inside stuff about Mid-South Wrestling. Now, we're telling you right now about what happened within the matches on television, but stay with us because a lot of inside stuff is to come. All right. Sorry, Rodney, go ahead.
All right, so now we got Hercules Hernandez with Cornette and, of course, Rick McCord. Rick McCord always fantastic. And, of course, Cornette's out there complaining about him having his tennis racket. He doesn't understand why they would take his tennis racket away. It's a dinky tennis racket. Tennis rackets don't hurt anybody. Come on. And he said, my mother, we're going to get my lawyers down here. We're going to sue because they shouldn't be taken. I don't like stuff taken away from me. Cornette, just always great. Always fantastic. And then, of course, McCord. And then the match, McCord against Hercules Hernandez. And in the end, it's the Shinnomaki that puts him out. And it's Hercules Hernandez over in that one. Tag match. Hans Schroeder teaming with Big Bob Owen. Or bad. Was it bad? He was big,
I think.
Or bad. Big or bad? Big and bad. Bob Owen against the Junkyard Dog and Jim Duggan in that one. And it seemed like Hans Schroeder decided, I'm going to work the whole match. I don't know. He didn't. I don't think he ever tagged in till the very end. And I could tell Dad was having some frustrations with him because he's like, tag! Get over there and tag. And he didn't until the very end.
Okay, Jack. What'd you think about that match?
Well, I think that was a favor to give two old guys a paycheck. It just it didn't click for me.
And we will, stay tuned because we're going to talk a little bit about the Junkyard Dog and his goings and comings during that 1984 and what we thought and even what was discussed. And it didn't. We'll talk about it here in just a second. Go ahead, Ronnie.
All right, so in the end, it was a Junkyard Dog beating. Finally, Big Bob Owens finally makes his big appearance, only to be thumped by the Junkyard Dog, and it was over. 1, 2, 3, Junkyard Dog and Jim Duggan. Then we have a special, the same special again for the PYT. And of course, then they come out and they wrestle PYT, Coco Ware, Norvell Austin against Randy Barber and Pat Rose. And I don't know about you, but I thought this match was fantastic. The people really behind the PYT. Coco finally winning with a big drop kick off the second rope. And just a tremendous match. Rose, again, just perfect. Absolutely perfect in that match. Then we come with...
I just want to point out that Randy Barber was a heck of a wrestler in his time, too, man.
Before we move on, we want to say hello to Robert Grice. Hello. Thank you so much for being a part. And also I want to talk to Mark Dodd. Hey, guys, first time here and excited for the show. I grew up in Georgia and was a big Brad and Mid-South Wrestling fan. And we were Squared Circle Channel. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing?
It is hot over there. I got a buddy that's on his way back. It's in the Army. It was 110 degrees yesterday.
Woo! That was a Ric Flair right there, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's going to be 98 in Alabama, though, so we're catching up.
Yeah, it was steamy here in Tennessee, too. Anyway, we end up with the Fantastics, another video on them. And then we have an interview with Boyd Pierce. But again, I really just wish he would have slapped Cornette. That would have made that place would have been exploded. So anyway, Boyd is trying to ask Cornette if it's true that they're trying to sign a match for the Mid-South Tag Team Championship against the Midnight Express against Junkyard Dog and Jim Duggan for television next week. Of course, Cornette never answered the question. And then right at the end of the program, right as they go off, also next week right here on Mid-South Wrestling, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair. And then that's it. And it goes off. And so that ends those two episodes of Mid-South Wrestling. I myself love the banning of all the objects. I thought that was fantastic myself. That was my favorite part of all of them. There's Boyd Pierce. Look at it. Look at that. Look at that jacket.
I'm finding all these pictures on the fly, by the way. I just was looking for them, and I thought, hey, since we're talking, and I might as well throw some pictures, photographs of them. I guess we are now ready to talk about Brad Armstrong, and a question that was that someone asked right here on the YouTube channel. That is the reason we did this program right on the YouTube channel. His name is Black Bart. Now, I'm not for sure. I don't think it's the Black Bart we all know and love, but his name is Black Bart. He asked this question: what would have motivated Mid-South Wrestling to use Brad Armstrong better? Here's the problem. When they were asking for someone, and we were riding down the road, and Dad asked this question: who could take Magnum TA's place? Magnum TA was on his way out. Who could take his place? A couple of people came to mind. Jimmy Golden. We said Jimmy Golden. We said Bob Armstrong. Those were the two people. They called. Dad calls, gets in touch with Jimmy Golden. Jimmy Golden says, I'm not making those trips. I'm sorry. I'm making as much money here. I don't have to make the trips. Bob Armstrong, no. I'm booking. At the time, I think he was booking. And no, I'm not coming there. I'm not going to make the trips. So we thought, well, Brad Armstrong. So we said, listen, call Brad. See if you can get in touch with Brad and see if he'll come in and work. Because we felt like Brad could take the spot of Magnum TA. Plus, Brad was a whole lot a better wrestler than Magnum TA. He was a whole lot better, really, really better on the mic than Magnum TA. So that was the thought process. Now, did we realize that they were going to have him win the North American Heavyweight title, the second TV show? No. You know, if they would have said, we're going to let Brad Armstrong win it. Now, Jack, have you seen how Brad won the title against Ernie Ladd?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that episode.
Where he choked him down? Because, see, that is the way Ernie Ladd choked Magnum TA down and won the North American title. So I understood the booking concept. All right, Brad's going to come in. He's going to choke Ernie Ladd down, and the people should be great. They should be happy. Mm-hmm. What they didn't take into account is the wrestling fans thought to themselves, they were mad. We were there at the town. They said, that's Magnum TA belt. Brad Armstrong shouldn't have it. Yep. Because they didn't build Brad Armstrong enough. So this is the thing. Magnum TA comes into the territory. Ernie Ladd is booking. He takes weeks upon weeks upon weeks to build him up. Finally puts him with Bristol Wrestling number 2. That really seals Magnum TA's. Oh, man, Wrestling 2 is taking them into the league. They do weeks upon weeks of videos of showing them how to do the knee lift and how to wrestle and how to everything. He tells them all this stuff. So they take all this time to get Magnum TA over. So why would the people not like Magnum TA and not really like Brad? Because they felt like he stole Magnum TA's title. It wasn't Brad Armstrong's fault. It was the promotion's fault and the booking because they didn't think about that. Does that make sense, Jack?
Makes perfect sense. You know, there should have been a hunt for the belt, and you didn't have that. That process alone would have solidified Brad more with the fans, you know, to begin with. You know, let Ernie avoid him. Let him deny him title shots. You know, let Brad talk about, man, I saw how you did Magnum TA. If I get my chance, I'm going to do the same thing to you. None of that got put across, though. There was no build up to it. It just boom, there he goes. So, there was no acceptance by the fans, which was not Brad's fault.
No.
Totally from a booking standpoint, it was just poorly handled.
It was poorly handled, and it was never Brad Armstrong's fault. So now he doesn't draw money. The people go, he's not over. They're booing him in some places they were booing him. So it never, but they, instead of blaming themselves, the booking, and Bill Watts blamed himself for that, they blamed Brad Armstrong, and it was never his fault. If they would have done a build-up, and then instead of trying to build him after that, they were trying to compare him with Magnum TA. Now, let's talk about Bill Watts for just a second. I respect Bill Watts. He has done a lot in the wrestling business. But instead of creating after 1984, he started wanting to recreate in 1984 and 85. Instead of Junkyard Dog, which had been there since 1978, by then it was 1984. And you know it, Rodney, that Bill Dundee said these words: we have to get rid of the Junkyard Dog. He said, oh, no, man, he's Drew Manuel. He said, it doesn't matter. His time is over. His time is over. And the problem is, I cannot get another babyface over if you keep the Junkyard Dog here. Because every time somebody would get beat up, what was the chant?
Yep, JYD.
JYD, JYD, JYD. You couldn't get another babyface over. Not to the extent he needed to. Yep. So, but he had the team. They had the team. The PYT could have been the team. But you know why Bill Watts didn't want that?
Of course.
Does anybody want to guess at that?
You, it's all about, again, what me and Phil talked about over and over again, was their size. They wanted big guys. And now we're midway through 1984, and now it's going to be a big, huge lurch back to 83, where it's all the big guys again. And Old Hat is on the way, and there's some of them that should have never seen the light of day in Mid-South ever again. Not to say that they're not great wrestlers. They just had no business back there. Absolutely none.
It was time for the Junkyard Dog to leave when he left. It was really time for Hacksaw Jim Duggan to be gone, because he couldn't have the matches that Bill Dundee needed them to have. But I want you to see, January, February, March, April, May, June, and July, big time business. They're drawing great money. Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Terry Taylor, Buddy Landale. They're drawing big money. And all at once, he wants to start building all the big guys again. Now, the biggest 6 months he ever had, and that's when he drew his most money in that 6 months in 1984, was with the Rock and Roll Express and Midnight Express and Magnum TA Wrestling 2 against the Midnight Express.
Exactly.
Midnight Express would have never got over there if it wasn't for Wrestling 2.
You're exactly right.
Wrestling 2, that was the establishment, and he helped all the people get over.
And just an example, if they would have done the same thing to Josh Stroud and Mike Jackson, it would not have had the same response as it did. No. I'm just the way. I'm not trying to criticize them. I'm just saying, you see what I'm talking about. Or even at that point, even Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner.
But Jack, am I way off base to say that by bringing the Midnight Express in, putting them with Wrestling 2, that really sealed them as being, and doing the nasty stuff they did that not seal them to be able to make big money with the Rock and Roll Express?
Oh, yeah, certainly it did. And, I was talking to Robert here not too long ago about how, Watch didn't want them, but took them. And he said he just rolled the dice with them, and they started getting over so big. But he said it was the same thing. They just felt like always that their time was limited because it was eventually, he wanted to go back to bigger guys.
And that was his downfall. Yeah. Now, listen, he didn't want the Rock and Roll Express, but then he does something stupid with Al Perez and Wendell Cooley. Wendell Cooley was getting over in Mid-South Wrestling. I remember coming back from a town, and I said, you need to push Wendell Cooley. I remember telling Dad, you need to push Wendell Cooley. He is the guy to push in Mid-South Wrestling. He is over. Al Perez a little bit, but Wendell Cooley really was. It wasn't 3 weeks later. They become the Rock and Roll Express #2, Al Perez and Wendell Cooley.
And you know what? Let's just be honest. The fabulous ones of Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert, they got over real good in Memphis.
Well, you know, I'm not for
They
sure.
learned that lesson.
I'm not for sure they got over better than the Rock, the newly found
Right.
Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, that didn't work out at all. That did not work out.
But he tried. This goes back to the recreating. He tried to
Yeah.
recreate instead of create someone. If you would have took Wendell Cooley, you would have played that music. He would have went and had a program with somebody. Wendell Cooley would have drew a lot of money for him. I remember the time. I remember this word saying I were talking about how well Wendell Cooley would get over. Was driving to a town, and so we were after they did the Rock and Roll Express thing. After they did that, we were driving back from a town, and I said, might as well just go ahead and get rid of Wendell Cooley. Dad said, you just said he would draw a bunch of money. I said, yeah, as Wildcat Wendell Cooley, the cowboy with the chaps and the Heaven Ain't a Lot Like Dixie come to the ring. But he's not going to draw that way. Now he's just a joke. Made no sense. The whole thing made no sense.
And then at this point, remember, after the Junkyard Dog, it is a desperate push to try to find Junkyard Dog #2.
Jack, did you ever get to see the Snowman?
Yeah. Yes, I did, and he needed a snow plow behind him.
You know, look, Brickhouse Brown was great.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to recreate the Junkyard Dog, that's just not going to happen. As I've said before, some things are a once in a lifetime thing. That was it.
Now, who was the first guy? There was the first guy. I can't remember.
His name was George Wells. This is who Butch Reed wanted to work with, and this was which we'll cover later. But Master G, George Wells, comes in the ring unannounced, and he's in his street clothes, and the announcers, I think it was Watts. That was Bill Watson. Boy, I don't know who this is in the ring. What's he doing in the ring? Like Watts would let just anybody walk into his arena and jump in his ring without jumping on him and beat them up. I just thought, what a bunch of nonsense.
But, you ask, Brad Armstrong, after that, we tried so many ways. At the time, there was a booking committee, and I tried to find the actual booking committee sheet, and it told exactly who was in it. I think Dutch Mantell was in it. And when it came on in 1985, Dutch Mantell, Bill Dundee, Grizzly Smith, Dad, and somebody else. I'm not for sure who the other person was, but probably Bill Watts. And I can remember him saying, come ready for ideals. And evidently, they just picked the wrong ones during that book.
We had more than one rejected on the spot.
We tried to say, okay, now you're saying Brad Armstrong didn't get over, he needs to be turned heel. And we came up with a whole deal where he would say, I don't have time for you. I don't have time for you. And I certainly don't have time for those fans that turn their backs on me. And we wanted him to be turned heel at the time because they didn't think that he was going to be the big baby face. And we felt like if you built him enough and got that Russian leg sweep over, when he hit that thing on people, that if they would have took 6 to 8 weeks to build that thing, 6 to 8 weeks with a program and winning the Mid-South TV title, and then going after the North American title, he would have got over and gave him some videos. I mean, you gave him the Magnum TA, you did videos on the Fantastics, you did videos on the Rock and Roll Express, even when they came back, but you did not do one video on Brad Armstrong. So Bill Watts, Bill Dundee, or anyone else that was booking at the time, that was your fault, not Brad Armstrong's fault. And, I don't mean to hurt your feelings. I don't mean to be mean, but that is the truth.
Well, it is. And that's absolutely truth. I mean, anybody, think about it. How long do you think it took the Junkyard Dog to do the thump before people got onto that? Look how long they'd taken with Terry Taylor and doing the flying forearm. Look how long it took. Look how long it took him with the double drop kick. What? Did we ever establish what it was in the Mid-South? No.
Now,
except for choking a person out with the rope.
I will tell you this. Brad did not care, okay? He did not care, so I don't want anybody to feel sorry for Brad Armstrong because he did not care. Because Brad was making anywhere around $1,500 to $2,000 a week working the third or fourth batches. For a while, they put him with the tag team. I think it was Terry Daniels. And he had to deal with the Dirty White Boys. He was making money. He didn't care. Never did Brad Armstrong care that he was ever on the main events he's ever pushed. He didn't care about that. It was not important to him. He wanted to wrestle as a living, and that's all he wanted to do. He didn't care if he was the star or not. Am I correct, Jack? You talked to him. You know, he would. Did he tell you that as well?
Oh yeah. He never cared about belts. He just wanted to make money and take care of himself. That's it.
Bubba Griffin in the house. Pensacola in the house. Old Tyrone Spivey said just a travesty. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
We were beside ourselves when we were there. I'll just tell you right now.
Mark Dodd said that makes a lot of sense. I remember that match. Bubba Griffin asked, did Steve Armstrong always works in tag team, or did he ever get a single push? I don't know. Did he ever get a single push?
Not that I remember.
I don't remember one.
I think he always was in tag team matches. Daniel Arvin, you dang sure want to.
Yeah. True. Absolutely. Well, it's not just that. It's just that Magnum TA was put through the ringer to become the North American champion.
Yeah.
Wrestling 2 put him through the ringer, and it was not an easy task. And I mean, he had to take beatings and whippings, and then he had his coach turn on him. He was put through the ringer. If you took that kind of time with Brad, or let me just say anybody, just about anybody, you're going to get the result that you want. But you take a person in there and say sink or swim in 2 weeks. And that's not fair.
He was just done wrong.
But I can tell you this, and I'll just say this: if Brad Armstrong had went to Oklahoma University, Bill Watts would have tripped over himself to see how hard he could push it.
Yeah, if he was a football player.
That's right. His man crush on football players was absolutely obscene.
Let's all remember the name of Edgar Boo Thomas.
Mm-hmm. That'll be coming up soon.
And he used him pretty good. And he was horrible.
Awful. Brad could have worked circles around him and Steve Williams at the same time.
Would you say Bill Watts was panicking during this time, just wrestling everything? What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, maybe. There was a desperate need to replace JYD and other big stars. So yeah, I can see that.
I think he made so much money in that 6. I don't understand though. He had the people. He had the pretty young things. He had the Fantastics. Man, he had so much great talent. He moved the PYT out in a month. I think they were talking him up.
Yeah. He resented the fact that Bill Dundee came and did what he did.
Yeah,
he resented the fact the Rock and Roll Express drew the houses that they did. He resented. In fact, every time he would get a chance, he would talk about how small they are, how small the Midnight was. Now, again, I have nothing but respect for Bill Watts. Yeah. Nothing from respect for Bill Watts. In fact, if I was going to create an organization, it would be very similar to what he had. Very similar to 1984. I mean, there was no better. But this sometimes you're just blind, just totally blind. And he resented the fact that small guys came and drew houses.
Tyrone said, "Watch his ego," and he did have an ego, by the way.
Yeah, and you have to in the business.
Yes, Daniel said, "Nail it, Rodney. Nailed it, Rodney." I think it's. Mark Dodd said, "So true about football players."
I'm gonna tell you, if I may say so, and I've made mention before on this, he would talk about coaches and football on his show as if somehow they're going to be there. And Jim Ross did the same thing. And again, it's his show. It was putting the money into it. He can talk about whatever he wants to on his show, but to me, it ain't going to draw you no house. But he can talk about it.
All right, Jack. Any closing comments about the 2 shows that we saw, or anything about Bill Watts as we talk about a little bit about the inside of pro wrestling?
Well, JYD, like I say, I don't know where he was at during these 2 episodes. He was a great guy. He was great in the ring. Paid his dues. He was just off. I think everybody was off. Maybe there was beer in the locker room. Who knows?
Rodney, any closing comments before we?
One thing that I felt that shows the character of promoter in this particular organization was the fact that Wrestling 2 put how many years into his company, and in the end, he basically called him an old man after all of the work that he did. Then, after the Junkyard Dog leaves, he takes on the whole segment to a person that helped put butts in those seats year after year after year and took time out of his show to destroy the man. Verbally destroy the man. That shows gratitude. That is the gratitude of this promoter. And that shows, that says volumes of his character right there. When you will backstab people that helped you live in that big house in Bixby, Oklahoma.
And he did live in a big house, by the way. So people know he made a lot of money, made millions of dollars in 1984. Michael Barr, hello. Thank you so much for being on here. And Square Circle said, but I think Watts gave us good competitive wrestling shows. Oh yeah. Oh, spectacular stuff. Bill Watts did give some great wrestling. The only thing that Bill Watts did was instead of creating after 1984, he tried to recreate. And I think that was his downfall, because by 1986, business was really, really, really bad. And in 1985, when we went down to the Universal Wrestling Federation from Continental Championship Wrestling, I remember sitting and telling Michael Hayes what happened to Mid-South Wrestling. What happened? Because the shows were boring. The house shows, at least, were boring. The televisions were still great. Ken Mantell was doing a great job. We are not saying that Mid-South Wrestling, what we were trying to say tonight was that Brett Armstrong could have got over and could have drew money, and we don't want a promoter or anyone to say, well, it was Brett Armstrong that didn't make it work. It was the promoter and the booker who didn't make it work. He could have done it. He drew money when he first started with his dad. You know why? Because Brett understood his role. When he was teaming with Bob Armstrong at 18 years old, he understood his role. He understood when he went to Atlanta and he was teaming with Georgia Championship Wrestling and one of the youngest national tag team champions, Georgia tag team champions of all time. He understood his role. He knew Bob Armstrong was the butt-kicking person and the guy that was going to talk and was going to do the rap while he was going to say, yes, sir, Mr. So. He knew that. That was his role. He went to Atlanta. He stayed there. He became the national heavyweight champion, and then he knew his role. He knew what it was going to take to get him there. And when he was in Mid-South Wrestling, he understood the wrestling business, and he knew his role. And he understood it very quickly after a month he was there, and then he went with it. He knew his role. But I'm going to tell you, the matches that he had were spectacular matches. We were there. We witnessed them. They were great. Mid-South Wrestling, great wrestler and organization. The Junkyard Dog, no wrestler ever in that area drew as much money as the Junkyard Dog. None. I don't care who they are. Jim Duggan was over and drew a lot of money, not the money Junkyard Dog drew. But they were off this night, and all we wanted to show tonight is this. We talk about modern day wrestling, and we say, oh, that stuff is bad. They did this. They were horrible. They were horrible. We said that old school wrestling had their days as well. And this was 2 shows that they had their days. We don't just knock modern day wrestling. We will talk about the bad times, if they were back in the day or they're today. Don't both of you agree with that? That's what be honest. We're going to be honest in Pro Wrestling Inside now.
Yep.
Sure. Absolutely. If you're going to analyze it, you have to analyze it all. You can't put on your rose-colored glasses and say, oh, by the way, when Steve Dr. Death Williams ran Terry Taylor's head into the whatever he ran it into, we think he missed it. We're not sure if he quite hit the ring post. We're supposed to ignore that. We didn't see that. No, we saw it. And, it's just honesty. If you want to keep credibility, you have to be honest with your perceptions. Absolutely.
Well, folks.
That's what I've said before. If I was going to start a wrestling organization, 1984, that would almost mirror that. I would have been happy. I would have been proud to have that crew, especially Midnight Express and Cornette. And just fantastic. Absolutely.
Now, is this our friend from Kuwait?
Yes.
Circle Channel. Thank you so much for being a part of our show. We certainly do appreciate it. And we want to thank you for joining us on this very special live on YouTube. If you've not went over to our Facebook page, visit our Facebook page. It is Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. And we want to thank you so much for being a part of it. And if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe today. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell, and it will let you know that we are. Yeah, give us the two hoes.
Hose. That's as far as adult languages will ever use.
Well, thank you so much, and we appreciate you being a part of that. And like I said, please subscribe to our channel and give us the thumbs up. It lets us know that you care, that we are producing these shows each and every episode.
Hey, we can take criticism too.
We can. We will take criticism if you want to do so. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out Live.